Whoa. Whoa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday.
Welcome.
I feel like just yesterday we were doing Wednesday readings.
Uh-huh. It went really fast.
This week went by incredibly fast. Incredibly. Say hello. We see you. We see you, people. Say hi.
Say hi.
Hi. Tell us about you. What's happening?
Yeah.
Jenny and I were chatting before we came on, and we are like, what are we going to talk about today? What is on our mind? And triggers and triggering, and like, this has been a topic since 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago that has been like in our sphere of sessions, and we've been talking about it a ton in Rising. Hello, friend.
Yeah, like a month actually.
It feels like a long time.
Yeah, we taught some stuff last month that everybody's like, hold on. And so we're like, all right, let's talk about triggers and what are they and where do you feel them in your body and what do you do about it? So I'd love to know, those of you that are watching, what are your triggers? What triggers you? Like, oh, this drives me so nuts.
And it can be like little, like sometimes I know that people think like triggered is such a millennial word. Like, you are triggered. Okay, what is a different word? If you want to call it a different word, I'm open. I'm open to suggestions. But like, what is the thing that makes you just want to shake someone, shank someone, or shoot someone? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
shake, shank, or shoot.
Where are we at? Because I think it's interesting because I was listening to one of my teachers and she said, my goal, people will ask you, like, what is your goal? Repetitive sounds make me insane. Some could just be like the silliest shit.
Yeah.
But she's like, my goal in life is to not be triggered.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh, look at you. I mean, she's like super successful and stuff. So like, but also like, I see you, girl. I see you wanting to just live your life in this neutral flatness. And I also want that. Like, I don't need to be like a multimillionaire, joyous person, happiest person on the year. I just want to like be chilling in life. Like, just.
Yeah. How about stressors? What are your big stressors? If you don't like the word trigger, what stresses you out?
If you're triggered by the word trigger, an option could be stressor.
Stressors. Yeah. But here's the interesting thing with that, actually. This is kind of giving me a whole different viewpoint on this. Stress is, there are amounts of stress that are required for our growth.
Yeah.
Like lifting a weight that's heavier than we can lift, or lifting a weight that's slightly less heavier than we can lift, lifting it more times than we can lift it, helps tear down the muscles in that, in the bicep, if we're doing curls here, and then the muscles repair and rebuild themselves and now become stronger.
Yeah.
Stressors are important. We are supposed to have stress. We are supposed to have triggers because they will point to the things where we need more growth, where we can be stronger.
Well, and I think if you think about a goal in life is to be the strongest you can be.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't be triggered anymore. Like, I've done all the things. So you have to like go through it. Like, she did not say that she didn't want to go through the triggers.
Yeah.
She just said that she didn't want to be triggered anymore.
Mm.
And I'm like, oh, I see you, sister. I see. Because it's interesting. And I think that being triggered is a good thing. It doesn't bother me. If I were to say my thing is, I strive to have a trigger happen and then to just be able to process it with ease. Like, I just want to have the trigger and then just, okay, I hear you. I see you. I see that was frustrating. And I would like it to be like an hour-long process.
And done. Set your time and go.
Done. We're done with this thing. And I find that like, I just want to be, if I wanted to even backpedal from that, like just find awareness that I was triggered by something, which I think I do pretty good. I think for the most part, I'm pretty solid in being like, oh, that was a thing. Usually within the hour of the trigger, I have figured out why I was triggered and why I was a saucy asshole to someone or to myself. Usually within about an hour, I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I come back and I say it to the person.
Yeah, you're pretty good at that. I'm a festerer. I fester and smolder and think about all the things that I should say and should do or should have said or should have done. And then go, okay, I gotta let this go. Because
It's really not worth it.
causing me pain at this point. And it's over and it's done. Is there anything I can do about it now? Yes, okay, let's do it and be done with this. Or nope, and move on.
That's true.
Yeah.
But I think they're both beautiful. Like, I think if we had everyone, and that's like why our partnership works, is because it's like if we just both were like, bah, 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 that would not be great.
Yeah.
And Jenny and I rarely get into bah, bah.
No.
I think we were discussing this earlier because, yeah, anywho. For different reasons, we were discussing this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And we really only had like one time where we like, and it was a total misunderstanding. So it's just very interesting. But I wouldn't say that I've only ever been triggered one time by you, because we grow and learn with each other.
Yeah.
But it's like we just can know it and say, oh, I'm sorry. Like, we never mean to offend, but it happened. It does happen sometimes.
Yeah. I trigger you.
Sometimes it happens as I trigger you as well. I think it's beautiful though, because it's like, what my favorite trigger is? When you are very big and I'm just like, all righty, Jasmine, stop being such a tight ass and have a good time. It's not that big of a deal. You can get up and move your body. And it's like such a little thing, but it is a big deal to me because I tend to kind of go within. And when you're like big, it's like, oh, okay. So triggers aren't always a bad thing. Sometimes they're this beautiful reminder that's like, get out of your own self for a minute and have a good time.
Yeah, I like it.
I would say that. Like, that does happen. But it's beautiful. And I'm always like, look at Jenny having a good time. Or it's like, what was it, the moon ceremony we had the other day? And you're like dancing and stuff after. And I'm like, not my jam. And it was a real beautiful thing to be like, look at her. I wasn't even bothered by it. And I think an old version of me, like last year or the year before, would have been really bothered by that. But as I'm working through it, it's like, no, she can be big. That doesn't mean I have to do it. Like, that's not my invitation to go and be,
Yeah.
So much learning happens.
It does. Triggers aren't all bad.
No, I think most of mine are like these just little communications, which really ties into like the whole goal of Rising for this month. And what we're talking about is channeling from your guides. And it's your guides placing these little hints of like, here's the little bit of a path. Here's the things you need to either do or let go of. And for me, it's just a big reminder to not take life so serious and to play. Like, that's the biggest thing that it reminds me of, is just don't take it so serious. It's all right. It's going to work out.
For me, the triggers, one of my biggest triggers is always feeling like it's my fault. Whatever went wrong somehow was my fault. And I will sit and ruminate and try to figure out how I can make it okay. But I like I don't have that control. And so for me, it's like this, okay, it's not all me. This isn't all me. I don't have to like fix the world and solve all problems right now. And like, really, everything is okay right now. Like, that's a big thing for me, is realizing, it's really okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
It's going to be all right. It's going to be, and there's these little things that's like, oh, just bam, you should be this, you should be that, or this person's having an emotional moment, which I do sometimes have those. It's not about anyone else but me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just is the moment, and it's okay. And I think even maybe the idea of big emotions.
Mm.
Do you think that's what I trigger you? Like, because I have big emotions sometimes. It's like, oh, what did I do wrong? Do you think it's big emotions that trigger you? Or someone having them? Maybe it doesn't even have to be big.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to really think on this one. Like you articulated so well how I triggered you, and I'm like, how does Jasmine trigger me? And mostly, honestly, I'm like just jealous of how easy it is for you to like speak your mind and speak your truth, even if it can be a little sharp and cutting at times, but it's delivered in a way of like, well, this is just how I see it. And so, um, but that's more of a like, oh, how can I be more like that instead of holding everything in and then later going, blah.
But it's so the reason I said the big thing is like you're so big with your body and movement, but like it's interesting how you can be so big in one part but not in another part.
Mm.
It was
Mm.
just like an interesting awareness piece.
Yeah.
Therapy with Jasmine and Jenny.
Mm.
Let's dive into the triggers.
Yeah. What triggers you guys or stresses? We also talked about stress could be another word if trigger doesn't ring your
Kate
bell.
is saying things. Kate's saying things. What is she saying? I really wanted to join in. In fact, I have been thinking about that dance moment this whole time that you've been talking. I need to start doing that. I'm playing more. Oh, that's so interesting. Well, next time, guess what?
Yeah.
That was a little moment for you. And next time, maybe you will.
Just get up and dance with me right now.
Or maybe you just like shake your groove thing. Or maybe you just are like me and just allow Jenny to shake her groove thing and you can live vicariously and you don't need to do all that.
Becky, I think it's interesting how people can be triggered by someone else being happy. This is really, really interesting.
That's a real thing. That's a real thing.
A real thing. And I think what it comes down to in my own little psychoanalysis, take it or leave it, whatever this is for, is that it comes down to a belief in your own value and worth of deserving those things. Because you see someone else being happy and getting the things that you want, and you're like, why do they get that? What makes them so special? Because you know that they're not perfect, and then they've got stuff going on in their life. So it's like, how come they get that? Why don't I get that? Like this self-worth, self-value thing. And I could be totally wrong here, but that's kind of how I view that.
That's really interesting. I also wonder if like we talk about 5 elements and joys and fire and that's like heart and control and like I'm trying to think of this cartoon that I watched. I know, very educational cartoons. And it was talking about, okay, here it is. I'm like, what is the show, Jasmine? Talk enough so that it will come back to you. So I am a pretty big King of the Hill fan. Okay. It is what it is. And there's this episode where Hank Hill, he has to carry the torch. And it just talks about just a couple times in his life where he really celebrated something. He really celebrated a win. And the first time it kind of like flashes back to this time where he was like they were winning their football game, right? And he did a celebration dance. And then he broke his ankle and they lost the game. Something of that nature. I can't remember all the details, so don't come for me. I'm on the spot here, folks. And then he gets the flame, right? He's carrying the torch for the Olympic flame. And he drops the flame. And it extinguishes, which you guys know, and that's a big deal. Like I think everyone knows that like that's a big deal. But someone like in the end, like it all works out. But his whole big thing about finding happiness is, well, if I'm happy, then that's not going to last forever. And we talk about it. Like when you go on vacation, do you not enjoy yourself because eventually you're going to come home? And that's the same thing with happiness. We're all hunting for it, but also we don't want it at the same time because we don't want the down. And I think that's really interesting. You're just like, oh, they're so happy, but we're thinking, well, eventually they won't be. Even like millionaires, like, oh, well, I won $1 million, but like taxes.
Yeah. Oh, the one thing that gets me is anytime we drive past a beautiful home and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd love to live there. And somebody will inevitably say, think of all the bathrooms you'd have to clean. Like, listen, if I can afford that house, I'm paying for maids. Like, I'm not cleaning those bathrooms.
And think about how beautiful it is to have to clean all those bathrooms. I
Yeah.
don't know. You can always find the downside of everything.
Mhm.
And I think another piece of it maybe is that everyone's happiness is not the same.
Yeah.
Maybe you want to live in a mansion, but maybe you fucking don't because you don't want to have the big of a house. Maybe you want to live in your trailer and you want to be left alone.
Yeah.
I want to live in a trailer by the river, and I want people to be just as happy for me as a fancy person. It's so interesting. So many things. I do think that's a big trigger, though. Other people being happy. How dare they?
Right?
That's
Oh
horrid.
my goodness.
That's horrid.
Yeah, I used to say, man, when someone's upset at me for being happy, I pray that they find something that makes them happy so they stop being mad at me for being happy. Something to that effect. It's just like, oh man, but if they, if they really had this happiness, and like this is where some compassion can kind of come in, right? Because if they were truly happy, they wouldn't give two flying fucks about what I'm doing.
Yeah, they on their own damn business.
Yeah. So there's kind of like this little bit of compassion, like, oh, I hope you find some happiness too, so you can stop being pissed at me for being happy.
You can stop being a real Karen. But then I think the other piece is like, so say you're the Karen in that situation, because we've all been there. Like, let's not pretend that we have not shit on someone else's happiness, because we all have done that 100%. For me, it's like, oh, I was a real Karen just then. What was it that triggered me to be a Karen? I mean, this happened to me the other day. She must hide it well. Because someone else was, it was one of those like, you know when like you get into that like pity party and like you're in the shit and like someone else is in the shit and you're like, but I'm more in the shit.
You don't even know. You don't even know.
And I'm like, I kind of found myself in that space because I really did have a rough go last week, but it's fine. But it's fine. Like, and then the shitty thing is like I was all triggered last week and really nothing changed to this week, just my perspective, but it's whatever. You know, that's how triggers work. But I'm like, okay, why am I so triggered by that? And it really came down to the fact that I really do like to be heard and seen because I don't, maybe I do complain. I don't know. I like to think I don't complain that much. And so when I'm having a rough go, like I really do want to be heard. And I didn't feel like I was so much in that moment. And so then I was like, oh, but that's really dumb because like, you know that you're seen and heard. So like, stop. And it literally took me like, I don't know, 15 minutes to be like, oh, you just wanted to be seen. But so did that other person. So you're fine. Like, just have compassion. And also, you don't need the pity party because you're done. You're done.
Yeah.
And that's such an interesting thing is like how you process through when you're in that space. Like when you're the one who's triggered and you are feeling like we were playing in the beginning about how triggers and like fun stuff. But there are real triggers. There are real things that do hurt your feelings. Mm-hmm. And how do you begin to find the awareness? And everything, like we say, always starts with the awareness of like, okay, why is that so bothersome to you? Mm-hmm. Not that excuses someone else's behavior, but like, why?
Yeah. Well, it's just really interesting because we live in this society where everybody can kind of act out without a lot of consequences, right? Like somebody posts their opinion on Facebook and then you can be like, right? And then like really the only backlash is maybe somebody like typing back how you're an idiot for thinking your same thoughts. But at our retreats, And in Rising, especially, we always start at the beginning of everything. If you get triggered, let's talk about it. Don't just sit there and fume. Don't just be angry. Like, let's figure out why you got triggered. And I have this personal belief that we all came here on the planet together at this time, right here and now, because you're going to trigger me, and your triggers are going to point me in the direction of the way I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
Because it triggers me for a reason. Because there's something in me and my core beliefs and my values, or my purpose and my mission and my passion, that doesn't feel quite right, and I've got to figure out how to make it work so I can continue to move forward on my path.
Well, I think it's a huge thing. And the big piece of that is feeling and having a safe space to say, you know what you said to me was really, like, I don't know how I feel about that. And I think finding that, like, compassion for each other to say, knowing, like, we do say things that trigger people. Jenny and I say things in Rising that do trigger people sometimes. We would not be doing our job as guides if we didn't, in my opinion. If I danced around feelings all the time, and not that I mean to hurt people's feelings, that's never my intention, but I do want to bring up things, and that's not necessarily how we trigger people. We don't, like, hurt their feelings, but we bring up concepts that maybe are a little iffy. And we have conversations about it, because I think it's a big deal that we talk about stuff. And I want to hear perspectives. I want to hear other people's perspectives. You do not have to match mine. You don't have to match Jenny's. You don't have to match anyone's. And I think that that's something that's missing a bit in our world right now, is being able to agree to disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've all become these sort of keyboard warriors, which is really interesting. But I think for us to be able to agree to disagree, we actually have to say that we disagree.
Yeah.
And we have to say that things are hard, and we have to say that things are bothersome. And it really excites me. This happened last week, where someone said, oh, hey, what you said, like, I really had to contemplate that. And I was so excited that they said that, because I'm like, yes. And then we had all kinds of conversations, and no one's feelings were hurt. And it was like, like, that for me is like the dream of how to work through triggers. Is this thing you said really made me contemplate how I feel about it.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe changed my thoughts. Or maybe what your response to that changed my thoughts. Or maybe no one's thoughts were changed, and we just have better understanding of ourselves.
That last one for me is key. Like, maybe we're going to agree to disagree here, but now at least I know where you're coming from, and I understand why you have the stance that you have, and we can find the commonalities in that and come together in that.
Mm-hmm.
That is beautiful. That is so exciting.
So exciting. How triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Even the word triggers.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't think you'll ever be immune to them. Like, I think, like Esther Hicks always talks about contrast and how important contrast is. Mm-hmm. It's like the first step in knowing what we want, knowing what we don't want. I didn't like that. Okay, so instead of that, what do I want instead? And now let me focus on that and get more of this in my life instead of this all the time.
I love no's. Triggers to me are like, oh, that's a nope.
Yep.
That's a solid nope. I'm not into that, which means door shut, move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Yes, some are more complicated. Like, in a weird way. I mean, they kind of are.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really fun way to look at that.
Contemplations for the week. So I hope you guys, if you're watching the replay, I hope you guys got something out of it. We would love to still hear about your triggers. Or just enjoy contemplating this over the week.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to learn more about how to manage them, we are talking about it in Rising all week.
Mm-hmm.
And all month. And lots of other things. And you can join us by using Rising 10 and get $10 off your first month. Rising is $90. I feel like we barely ever say how much it actually is.
Yeah.
It's $90. You get to have 4 individual readings, which last an hour. You get to have 4 lessons, which last an hour. And you get to have 2 or more moon ceremonies, depending on if the month has more, or if there's any other significant astrological event that happens in the month, we'll usually do a ceremony connected to it.
Mm-hmm.
You also get to be a part of our integration group. We have yet to find a good word for what it is, but we have a Marco Polo, which is a chat feature. It's an app on your phone, and you get to talk to Jenny and I all throughout the week, anytime you want. For $90, you get all that. If you happen to pay for a year, you get 2 months free, and you get to also have class membership.
Yeah. Come hang out with us.
Come chill. Come see us. We like to hang out. So if you have any questions about Rising, you can leave them in the comments, or you can email us, and you can do that all on our website.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to come to retreats, we do have a retreat happening in September, which is a healing retreat, which is kind of like Rising on steroids in 3 days in person. If that's something you're interested in, then you can also comment and we can get you more information, or you can just go on the website and you can get all the information that you want and you can sign up.
Yeah. We have a drum ceremony in June, womb healing. And if you want to make a drum, you don't have to make a drum. But if you want to make a drum, we do need orders in by the 21st of May.
Mm-hmm. Hides are intuitively picked, but you can pick your size.
Yeah, you can pick the size, but hides are intuitively picked. But a womb healing, rebirth ceremony.
If you want to hear Jasmine cry as she guides a meditation, that is the one. Those ones always get me. I'm like, oh man, it's like getting rebirthed every time. They are like our first rebirth ceremony. I mean, they're all been beautiful, but man. Yeah.
That one was for the books, for sure.
For sure. Faux show.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I think be kind with yourself. Mercury's in retrograde. We're in eclipse season. Our last eclipse is next Monday. So be gentle, as you probably are way more triggered now than normal time because all of the shadows are coming up.
And if you're struggling with shadow work, if you're struggling with things in your life, don't be afraid to reach out. Jenny and I are doing sessions by donation for the whole month of May. So if that's something that you're interested in and you want to have an individual session because you don't want your shit aired out to everyone in a group setting, or you've never received one before and you want to connect with us, we do them in person or online. All of our sessions are legit donation based. Like, it does not matter what you can give. We are just here to give and connect with people because that's what we love to do. We do have limited sessions though in each week, so just reach out to one of us. I'm not paying attention to comments so much, so just DM me if you want to have a session. I'm doing a bit of a Facebook hiatus. I know I'm literally on Facebook right now, but I'm not on the app. I am checking here and there, but if you want to reach out to me, just send me a DM.
Okay.
That's all the things.
Yeah.
We love you guys so much.
Join us tomorrow night for readings, 7 o'clock, and meditation at 7:30.
Yes, it's a little mini version of Rising.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, we love you, and we will see you tomorrow.